We'll call this meeting to order now that Ben has joined us and we're a full house. I'm John Strand, your chair. We'll run around the table and do introductions. We have some new members and faces at the table with us, so it'll be fun to continue to get to know who's new with us, and we'll begin with you, Assistant City Director Administrator Brenda.
Good afternoon. I'm Brenda Derrick. I'm the Assistant City Administrator.
I'm Mike Williams. I'm a citizen at large. Oh, I'm Mike Williams, a citizen.
Dave Beats, Fargo Park District, Deputy Director of Operations.
Chad Brusso, Cass County Electric, VP of Member and Energy Services.
Chad just got a promotion, so congratulate him. But I'm Bruce Grubb, retired, but still hanging on part-time as an administrator, and thank you.
I'm Abenya Cavasseri, the youth representative.
Ben Dow, Director of Public Works, City of Fargo.
Shauna Radnick, Inspections Director, City of Fargo.
Becky Majerus, Director of Facilities.
Luke Grittner, Transit Planner, City of Fargo.
Mark Williams, Planning Department, City of Fargo.
Zoe Apsey, Public Representative.
And I believe we have Casey Steele, do we, online? I think she was going to be joining us virtually. Is there anybody else online just to check? If not, we'll go forward with our agenda.
Yeah, this is James Hand. I'm here.
Good, James from the school district. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, absolutely.
And anybody else?
Mr. Chair, we were
Yes.
supposed to have two presenters online today as well, Maddie Anders and Anna Delker. And if you're out there and can hear us, I don't know if Brian needs to let them in when their spot on the agenda shows up, but I just wanted to.
We can hear you.
Good. All right. Well, you'll all notice we've modified our agendas a little bit. Going forward, we can always learn. Our last meeting was a marathon meeting that just went forever, and I didn't do a very good job reining it in. So Bruce and I, and part of it was we'd had a gap in time, and we had a lot we thought to catch up on. So that was, but that's, our agenda will have timelines built into it. And when we have public comment, we'll have an allocation for timelines as well, so that you all can follow the timeline we have to be out within an hour and a half or earlier. And thanks everybody for being part of this. It's something to be involved with. The beginnings of some effort in the Sustainability Resiliency Committee is no longer quite new, but we're still in the earlier phases of our journey than we are in the later phases. And I believe the proof will come out in the pudding that we're going to be seeing some actionable, tractionable items going forward that will reflect the accumulation of knowledge and sense of issues and getting an awareness of what Fargo's already done, which is really substantial. So on that note, could I have a motion for the approval of the agenda, please? Unless somebody has any changes or corrections. Okay,
Move to approve.
move to approve. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. They will be posted as presented. We have I'd like to receive a motion to approve the minutes, just a minor corrections of our February meeting. So you all should have the February minutes in your meetings. If there are any additions or corrections, if not, I'd receive a motion to approve.
I'll make that motion.
Motion to approve. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay? Good. We're going forward. Bruce, I'll turn it over to you. And you all know Bruce is really the key point person for our committee, having been the former city administrator, having been a public works administrator for the city of Fargo. It's just such a good fit, and we're so fortunate to have his skill set as a part of our team. But I'll turn it over to Bruce to introduce the next topic, and this is a fun one.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. The SRC bus wrap, we have an update. I put Abenya's name behind it, but I know that she's been working with Catlin and Megan in planning as well. And as I understand it, a recent arts and culture meeting where the finalists were actually selected. I think I've got the top three accurately portrayed in the packet. But Abenya, can I turn it over to you for the tidings of great joy?
Yes, I'll just start from like January just to give like a big update. But in January, Archie and Catlin helped me like get out there and like spread the word around on the news and the radio. And so then that helped a lot, I think, with like getting submissions. And so we got 20 total. And then later, I honestly don't even remember what day it was, but we got together with a few members of the Arts and Culture Commission and then some of the Fargo Youth Initiative members. And we went through them, looked at the criteria, and picked those top 3. And then I think the Arts and Culture Commission, like, kind of also agreed with that when they took that back. And so now it'll be sent to the City Commission. So hopefully they approve that, and we'll have that out by April 15th, I believe. Yes, so yeah, that's just a brief update. I'm glad I went successfully, and thank you all for the support.
So Binya, how did the students respond to this whole concept?
Like, are you asking like within the artwork
Yeah,
itself?
just in general, the process, the concept, the engagement.
Well, I think like personally, I had a lot of friends reach out to me, and they were like, "Oh, this is so cool that like it's like a project that the city is doing, and it's like with art, and it's like a fun little project." But it was cool to see like the different grades of artwork from like there were like 6th graders doing it. There was also like seniors who are working on it with like their iPads and stuff. And so I think it's cool to see how people like take it up on their own and create their artwork. So yeah.
And bear with me, we picked 3 winners,
Yes.
and those winners get a stipend.
Yes.
And then one of the winners turns into a bus wrap.
Yes, but then it'll also, all 3 will be here at the city hall on display. Yeah.
Oh, good. And help us understand the timing of it all. When will we see the first wrap?
The first wrap, okay. It just says in spring. Like, I feel like even like on the news, they're like, when is it going to be? And I was like, spring, I guess. But I know that the 3 pieces of artwork will be shown at the Impact Fargo event, April 15th.
Great.
So-
Luke, do you have anything from Transit to add to this conversation, being as it's a Matt Transit bus?
Just that once the final wrap is selected, it'll be less than a month before it's put on. I know Catlin and Megan have been connecting with a wrap vendor here in town, discussing the details of the production and installation, so it should be a pretty quick process.
We should, when it's all at the right time, you can look for the right moment, or when the bus is being wrapped, or when it's wrapped, we should bring it to City Hall and have the Sustainability Resiliency Committee see it and get a picture with it.
Yes. we
And
should.
one last question, won't there be an exhibit of the participants too, or something potentially of their art?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
I think, yeah, all I know is that April 15th, those will be there, but I don't know if like the students themselves who created it are invited to be there. Yeah, that would be cool though. Maybe I'll bring that to,
I hope we can keep this project going and
Me too.
get next year, do it again, and next year maybe keep growing it and getting more interest. And thank you for your leadership at the school level with this. Bruce, anything else on the bus wraps project?
I think that there's an item bound for the city commission on April 15th. And I think that's the last stop then before we can get to work on the actual production of the wrap itself. Okay. So next step, April 15th.
Mark, I know this isn't your purview, but maybe in your planning department with the Arts and Culture Commission, if we can make sure we see the art at our meeting, if they could have pictures of it or put it on the screen.
Sounds good.
Becky?
I can actually speak to that. I've been working with Megan in planning, and I believe the plan is on April 15th, all of the artwork will be displayed on first floor.
Great. So. Just in advance of Earth Day. Good timing. Anything else on that? Thank you. Thank you very sincerely. You hit the ground running with a project as a new member. All right, we'll go to our next item, and I'll let Bruce Grubb introduce it and lay the groundwork for it.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Item number 5, let me give a little bit of a history lesson here. In early 2023, Mike Redlinger, our city administrator, received a notification from the North Dakota League of Cities, actually, about a grant opportunity through the Department of Energy's EECBG program, Energy Efficiency and Conservation Block Grant. And it was notifying us of a non-competitive direct formula grant that the city of Fargo would receive of $176,940. But the first thing that we had to do to set ourselves up to receive that is file a pre-application, which was due by April 1st of last year. We did that. And then you need to follow up with a formal project application to actually receive the money. That was supposed to be due late last year. The deadline for submittal was kicked out to April 30th of this year. And so we're currently working on that now with the assistance of WSB. And I'll have that individual helping us, Maddie Anders, speak to this application in just a second. But one of the other requirements to receive this was an overall energy efficiency and conservation strategy, it's called. WSB is also helping us with that. And we utilize the HDR roadmap that we saw at our last meeting to create that. So we do need still to identify a specific project for the formal application. When we met earlier, just a small group of us, we decided energy efficiency in buildings was maybe a great theme to take on first. So Becky provided some input, and you'll see the possibilities in just a moment. But with that brief introduction, I would like to introduce Maddie Anders with WSB to talk a little bit more about this formal application and the strategy plan that putting together. So Maddie, if you're out there, it looks like you've got control of the screen.
Hey, Bruce. Yep, I think Hannah does. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Is it delayed?
Yes, we can hear you. It is delayed. Sorry about that.
Oh, shoot. Okay. Yeah, it looks like our slides are a bit delayed too. Hannah is on the ones and twos, the keys with the presentation. But for now, I'll just introduce myself. I am Maddie Anders. I'm the Sustainability Program Manager here at WSB, and Bruce did a fine job of setting up some of the work where we've had the pleasure to work on with a few folks in the room the last couple of months. I'll let Hannah introduce herself too quick before we dive into EECBG.
Hi, yeah. So I'm Hannah Delker. I am a graduate engineer in a municipal group here at WSB, and I helped specifically with the CPRG application that we're going to discuss a little bit later. But I'm excited to be here and grateful to have had the opportunity to work with so many great people on that application.
Great. So I'll just give a quick background here on WSB for those of you who don't know. I know Amy Fredrigill, our boss, I suppose, came up a year or two ago, was it, Bruce, and kind of gave an overview of what we do, and was just sort of starting some work with the city of Fargo. So we're about, I think, 1,300 strong right now. We have probably over 50 service areas at the moment and over 46 offices as of a new merger. And we operate in 10 different states. So our core business is really construction, civil engineering, design, and planning work. But we do a multitude of things, including sustainability work. So if you want to move to the next slide, Hannah, I can give a couple of project examples here. And it's pretty diverse, some of the projects that we work on, which is always really fun, fast moving. It's always a good time. So we work, you can think of this anywhere from like securing and installing EV chargers to comp plans to developing statewide low carbon transportation policy plans. We kind of do it all. So most recently, for example, we've been working with a few local governments to implement some of these projects and policies that we actually helped them establish in sustainability plans that we helped write for them over the past few years. So I think, what really makes us unique is that we have this wonderful bench of WSB staff, including Hannah here, who's an engineer. And so we have people in like landscape architecture, engineering, transportation planning, engagement, for example, who have this green thumb, if you will, and can really provide us, and our projects with expert advice and experience, and really ultimately lead to the success of this work, which, is so interdisciplinary. And I think Amy Frederick can't be here today, but I know she does a lot of work with American Crystal Sugars up there in Fargo, I want to say. I'm not sure exactly where they're based out of, but just another one of the projects that we get to work on. And this here is the roadmap, the HDR roadmap, which I know is probably hard for y'all to see. But I just wanted to point out the two spots here for the CPRG implementation funding and the ECBG funding, which are the two sort of areas that we've been working with you guys on in the past couple of months. So anything else you want to add there, Bruce?
No, thank you for showing that roadmap so that we can show the committee that we're trying to follow that.
Sure. And moving into ECBG, Hannah, if you want to go to the next slide. I know there's a bit of a delay. So the City of Fargo, as Bruce mentioned, is applying for a program formula grant awarded through the DOE called Energy Efficiency and Conservation Block Grant, or ECBG as I'll refer to it as. So it is a formula funded grant, so it's non-competitive, and as Bruce mentioned, it's about a little over $176,000 for the City of Fargo. That funding can be used for a couple different things, which I'll get to later. It's due April 30th, which is right around the corner. So we're working hard on it, and it's still in development early stages right now. And we got a couple of other meetings later this week with some folks at NREL, the National Renewable Energy Laboratory, who's sort of the technical assistant expert on this, and folks at the ECBG program office as well. So in total, there was $430 million being dispersed going to local governments for projects that cut carbon emissions, improve energy efficiency, and reduce energy use. Those are the three things they're looking at doing. So up to, I think, 17,000-ish, maybe a little bit less of those grant funds of, the 176,940 can be used for administrative expenses, such as reporting, which is actually a pretty easy reporting process, which I'll get to later. So I don't foresee, you using that much, which is good because then there's a little bit more money in your pockets to do stuff you want to do. Next slide, please. So as part of ECBG, local governments can actually choose between a formula grant, which is what Fargo had been set up to apply for until about a month and a half ago, or a voucher, which is what we are actually pursuing right now. So the City of Fargo is pursuing the voucher option, which covers technical assistance, which is coming from NREL, like I mentioned earlier, to develop that energy efficiency and conservation strategy, which is a required process along with this ECBG program, along with equipment rebates that have already been identified by, I think, Becky and a few others in the room, maybe to, enhance energy efficiency in city buildings, which we'll talk about on the next slide as well. So really the voucher option has a much more simplified application process, and it has a faster turnaround time to process those applications, and overall requires just way less administrative time. So I think it just made the most sense. The application also just requires, it's basically you just provide a brief description of the voucher selection, its intended use, and expected outcomes, and that's the whole application process in a nutshell. And of course, that doesn't include the EECS, the Energy Conservation Plan. So speaking of that, the Energy Efficiency Conservation Strategy has to be developed, and this will really just include a description of, Fargo's high-level goals for increasing energy efficiency and conservation in the future. So this is currently in the works right now, and it's still pretty early. So I think Bruce and Becky and a few others in there, you can probably expect to hear from me this afternoon or probably tomorrow to set up another meeting later this week about that. Next slide. And lastly, we'll talk a little bit about some of the things that Becky and others have put together here in terms of the retrofits. So equipment rebates include things, like energy efficiency retrofits, HVAC heat pumps, windows, insulation, weatherization, that sort of thing. Also EVs, EV charging stations, equipment for renewable energy projects such as solar and wind, metering equipment, things of that nature. Those would all be eligible activities under this program. But Fargo has already identified a list of projects listed here that qualify for ECBG funding. So there's a handful of things here, and as part of the program, you can sort of mix and match. We could maybe do the top 3, for example, and we'd still be under that $176,000 budget allocation that we have. Or there could be, if the city wanted to pursue the public health roof replacement for $315,000, it would cover almost $176,000 of that, and then the city would, pay for the rest. So more conversations to come on what to pursue there. This funding is also, we're still working with the ECBG folks to see if part of this funding can be used for a computer-aided facility management software. So I'm still trying to get some prices on that. So Becky, you can probably expect to hear from me later as well regarding that piece of things. And that's really where we're at right now. Anybody have any questions on ECBG? It's still, in the works right now. It's a pretty short, application as it is, but I think just getting all the pieces together, we'll need a little bit of coordination over the next few weeks.
Becky, I'm curious.
Hannah will talk about CPRG after this.
I'm curious Becky's input on thoughts on where you think our highest priorities, most best uses could, just off the top of your head, could be.
So the items that are on that list are items that we had requested funding in the 2024 budget. However, we did not get those funded. So that was kind of the lowest hanging fruit as far as projects that we could work on. Other things, the computer-aided facility management software, that would be more of a global attempt to track our energy efficiency and help identify where we can make the most impact.
Ongoing.
Yes.
Okay. Anybody else? Comments, questions, feedback for Maddie and Becky? One of the things you'll sense, when we all began this process, we didn't have much budget. So a portion of our earlier efforts are trying to find funds out there to help us move forward faster. So that's kind of an underlying theme in what you're beginning to see from the committee, but including this, that we're looking for opportunities out there to bring some of these actions home and have some funding, and there's lots of funding out there if we just have the ability and when we can to go get it. And that's where the agencies, it's really, the WSB is really helping us. It's delivering that right there. Anything else, Becky? Maddie? Bruce?
No, thank you,
I don't think
Maddie.
so. Feel free to email any of us if you have any thoughts or comments after this. Welcome it.
And thank you for bringing these opportunities and helping us see these opportunities, Maddie. Thank you very much.
Mr. Chair.
Michael Williams.
So, Maddie,
Absolutely.
we've over the years been seen different proposals for performance-based sustainability funding. So basically, if you can save it, then you get to use it to invest in projects that normally don't hit the budget. So is that something you guys are discussing, Maddie and Bruce? Because we don't have to hire somebody to do it. We can just make that decision.
Mm-hmm.
And I think on the next item, you're going to see a version of that. So I hope you're happy what you hear. I think that's what you're thinking about, where savings get applied. Yeah.
And I was happy to see in the minutes that somebody had spoken saying that we can't manage it if we don't measure it. So that's really what this is about, but that's an old line.
Yep.
Yes.
And Maddie, that's Mike Williams, who really was one of our key people in the community some years back on the commission level. and in the local level advocating for energy sustainability topics. So Mike, thanks for keep in touch with this. That's really good thinking.
Thanks.
Anybody else?
That's great.
All right, thank you, Maddie and WSB. And Bruce, let's go to the next topic.
Okay, item number 6 on the agenda, and similar to the previous item, I think it was Chairman Strand that received a notification from the North Dakota Department of Environmental Quality about the availability of grant funding through the EPA's Climate Pollution Reduction Grant Program. And to that end, the Department of Environmental Quality had begun preparing a statewide priority climate action plan. It's called a PCAP. And it is a requirement to be eligible to receive federal grant money through the program. And so the DEQ hosted public input sessions all across the state, most of last year, seeking ideas for including in the plan. We're not horribly successful with that, but one of the things that did occur is they noticed on our website our white paper that we put together, and they had kind of zeroed in on our LED lighting program. And so Jeremy Gordon and I participated in a couple of virtual meetings with the DEQ, and they actually ended up including it as one of the state's top 5 priorities, a Fargo project. So we love that. We were the only city in the state named in the state's PCAP. And so that's really important to us, because for a project to be eligible, it has to be listed in one of these PCAPs, whether it's state or local or whatever. So that PCAP deadline, get a load of this now, that deadline was due on March 1st. So after you find yourself in a PCAP, then you got to hurry and put together a formal application for your project. That was due a month later. So on March 1st, we found out we were listed, and in less than a month, we got this 85-page application, whatever it was, put together, and we beat the deadline. So really happy about the application was for, I think it was $2.64 million. Anna will get into that in just a moment. But this one is a competitive, nationwide competitive grant. And so we'll be competing with other proposed projects across the nation, but WSB does a lot of this and feel really good about our odds, also being called out specifically in the state's PCAP. So Hannah, I hope I didn't steal all of your thunder. I'm trying to be helpful, not hurtful, but if you can pick it up from here, that would be great. This is really exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I appreciate the introduction, Bruce. Well, like it's mentioned here right at the top, we have submitted the application. In fact, we did it 3 days before the deadline, so go team. I'm so grateful for everyone who helped at the city with getting information together and receiving plenty of emails from me. So I really appreciate the information gathering and the collaborative efforts that we put together to make this grant happen. So thank you everyone for that. So I'll kind of give a brief background. I know Bruce touched on this as far as the EPA's requirements for what qualifies for this grant. But first and foremost, as Bruce said, it does need to be part of a PCAP. And so luckily the Department of Environmental Quality submitted a PCAP, which identified Fargo, which was great news because it meant that we had something to pursue. Other requirements for this grant, greenhouse gas emissions, which is kind of the main goal of the whole program. So that seems pretty self-explanatory. And also significant benefits to low-income and disadvantaged communities, or LIDAC is the new acronym they use, which I think is really a fun acronym. It covers a lot of categories that are important in these types of work. And then finally, and something that we really tried to hone in on with the application, is an innovative and creative solution, or multiple solutions to addressing these problems and creating more opportunities for work in the future. So the project that we proposed has the LED streetlights as the foundation, but also has a robust and broader mission, community outreach around it. So that LED streetlight project specifically is replacing of all about 4,000 streetlights that are left that do not have LED bulbs. These bulbs are significantly more efficient, they reduce energy consumption, and are just better as far as longevity and function. So we proposed a project of 2 years of construction. This was in collaboration with Jeremy and his group. And then we also tacked on about an extra half a year for anything that has to happen at the end. So the community outreach plan that we really frame this project with is focused on establishing community relationships and reaching out to those communities that may not be involved in these types of conversations normally, and having conversations not only about the LED streetlight project, which is important but may not seem like the end all be all for climate action, but it's opening up more conversations for future action. And so that's something that we really tried to drive on this application, is that we're establishing relationships, we're establishing connections to then see these conversations continue to happen in the future. And so this included, and I'll cover this a little more later, but some significant support staff for community outreach that supports not only the LED streetlight project, but also conversations for future. On top of that, in an effort to show that the city is invested in this project and wants to contribute to the themes and the work that we've identified, we propose creating a community resilience fund, which would be funded by the savings of what you would have been spending on streetlights. So that was about $125,000 a year based on an estimate. Obviously, that might change a little bit. On top of that, it would be any construction costs, because if the grant wasn't funding the LED streetlight replacements, they would have happened at a rate of about $500 a year for the next 8 years. So you're saving money on construction costs on top of the energy savings. So all of this to say, that money for all future annual budgets could go into this community resilience fund that would be used for future resiliency projects, and you would utilize those relationships that you've established with the community outreach to determine the most effective ways to use this funding, whether it's pollinator gardens or art that displays the community's goal of achieving community or climate resilience. I mean, we discussed so many ideas, but the important part there is that we wouldn't make any decisions on where this money is used until you have those conversations with communities, and particularly those LIDAP communities. That's a huge piece of this. And the last component of the application is the data tracking for the streetlights. So we proposed a position for somebody to help load all of the meter data from the streetlights into a program where then the data could be monitored for energy efficiency, and they could identify potential improvement areas in the future and see where energy could be saved better. So this is something that I helped put together in the application writing process that I think really helps encompass the overall structure of the project. So I just wanted to put it on here as sort of an explanation in a more visual format as how this project would be pursued. So we have the finance manager overseeing the spending. That's primarily to ensure that all the reporting is getting done properly for the grant and making sure that every dollar is being properly spent, because that's a super important component of these grants. So then beneath that is Jeremy, the transportation division engineer, who will serve primarily as a cross-departmental liaison. He's not going to be the person managing the facilities portion or managing community outreach, but he's there to be kind of a coordinator between groups, as he's primarily overseeing this LED streetlight project. And then from there, it goes down to the right, you see the data management piece with that part-time employee that would be brought on. I think we've had the contract at about 1.5 years, so they can help out with that for about 1.5 years at a part-time role. And then all the way to the left, you see that community outreach. So we built in money for a communications manager to work for the 2.5 years that the project goes on, as well as extra funding for a consultant to support that individual, because that individual will be working as city staff. And so to have that additional support is super important if there's anything that's super niche or maybe outside of the realm of their personal experience. And then in the middle there, kind of the meat of the project is that LED streetlights work, and at the bottom there is the electrical contractor that would be brought on to support the work. All right, so now we'll just get a brief overview of the budget. So as Bruce said, the total funding that we requested is about $2.64 million. This is actually in the smaller range as far as what can be requested for this grant. It's actually pretty crazy, some of the numbers of what people are proposing for these projects, but this really encompasses everything that we felt would support this work. So on the left, you have the street light replacements, and that includes the construction costs. We accounted for travel, equipment, supplies, and then the labor. And then, like I mentioned, we have the community outreach staff. So that's the communications project manager, which would be part of the communications department on a 2.5-year contract. And then the public outreach consultant to support that individual and provide materials as needed. And then the energy efficiency data management position, that would be a part-time 1.5-year contract. And those two individuals with asterisks are those that would be funded by this, or not funded, but supported by the city and become part-time or full-time city staff during the time of their contract. All right, I know I just shared a lot of information at once, so I'm happy to answer any questions that come up.
Hannah, I'm curious with this Community Resiliency Fund, how far into the future can that go?
I mean, that's sort of a conversation to be had at the city, but I mean, ultimately, the city's been spending the extra money on the streetlights as long as they aren't fully LEDs. And so the idea is to kind of operate as if the budget was to kind of stayed the same. Like if tomorrow we put on all the LED streetlights, but then kept that money in the budget, it could then be used for other work, if that makes sense. And that's something that we'd continue to nail down the details on as we pursued the work, but it's an important component of this, and it was a commitment that we made in this application to help make it a competitive application.
And sustainable. Anybody else around the table? Questions, feedback, comments for Hannah? Bruce.
Mr. Chair, just one thing, I don't know if I remembered, but neither of these two grants require a local match. So it's really a unique opportunity. Oftentimes, Jeremy can attest to transportation or other, there's a local match requirement. In this case, what's so beautiful is that's not a requirement.
$2.6 million. Anybody else? Feel free to join in. This is a really exciting moment for us to put our fingerprints on. I have the dumbest question in the world. Maybe this is for Jeremy or for you, Hannah, but we've had a couple presentations, one informal, one formal, from Patrick Summer, who's into the light pollution topic and dark skies. And does this technology allow us to affect the light exposure, the light pollution aspects of those topics? I'm just curious, can we also kill a few birds with one stone? Or I don't know, I just don't know. The technology, Jeremy's coming up, maybe you can answer my stupid question.
No, I get what your point. Not necessarily. Because the whole dark sky is, so your light is actually just shining down or has a cap on top of the light. You know, like car dealerships, they like to shoot the lights up. That's where the unfriendly skies come from. So what we're talking about is really just replacing what exists with a different type of bulb.
All right, let's run around the table. Anybody have any ball Hannahs on before we turn it over to Jeremy? You might as well stay up there. Anybody else? Hannah, this is just really so significant. I don't know if there's enough words to thank all of your folks and people for their efforts to put into this to help Fargo get this leg up on this topic. It's just substantial and an amazing success that you're aiming us for.
Well, it was certainly a pleasure for us to be involved in the work and to hear the awesome conversations that were had in regards to this project and the community outreach component, and really just exciting work overall. So we appreciate the opportunity to be involved.
And before, one last thought before Bruce, then we'll turn it over to Jeremy. But you know, when this was starting to come forward, we had some cities, Bruce, Brenda, Jeremy, really engaged and got involved. I remember, I think you were working over the weekend, Brenda, and Jeremy was providing you information because the deadlines were coming fast and furious at us. And our people really rallied to gain this opportunity and not have it slide by. So kudos to our staff and administration for breathing life into this, which would have been maybe easier to go off and have a weekend or evening of your own. Anything else, Bruce, before?
No, thank you for that. But can I give Jeremy a little shout out leading into item number 6? He's not a glory seeker, but I wanted to take the opportunity to thank him because he carried a lot of the water on this, and you know what it's like when everybody's got a full plate, and hey, we've got this big grant opportunity, we got 30 days, and you just kind of have to shelf what you have, and he didn't complain a bit, got it done, just really enjoyed working with him, and thank him for picking that up, because this is a really big deal, so thanks, Jeremy.
Yeah, I would second that.
He does like applause, however.
And Zoe has a question too, sorry.
When would this start, or when would the hiring begin?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. So according to what the EPA has available right now, I believe the funding is dispersed like around October. That's like pending any revisions that they request from the initial application. But if the funding were to be awarded, I believe that hiring could happen as soon as like November, and the work could begin next summer. And so that's kind of why we budgeted that 2.5 years. So hopefully during that winter, springtime, that community outreach can start to happen in full force, and then the plans can be developed, and then come spring, continue that community outreach, but then also start the construction piece.
Okay, any other questions? All right, we're ready for Jeremy now.
When I asked Jeremy to do this, he said he was going to prepare a street lighting 101 presentation for us, so we're good.
All right. Brian, could we pull up the PowerPoint? Oh, there we go.
Jeremy, you might tell the folks online what you do and what your title is and why you're speaking to this.
Yeah, thanks for having me. My name is Jeremy Gordon. I'm the Transportation Division Engineer. I oversee signing, striping, signals, and lighting. So that's what my duties are here at City of Fargo. It's been a good ride. It's been over 20 years. So when Bruce asks for things, usually it's sandbags from Sandbag Central, but occasionally it's something else. But this is a topic that I really enjoy. So I put this together, and I see it's a good thing we're down the list here. I'll kind of back clean up. So I got two. I promise I'll keep things light. And then the other thing is, I think a couple years back, they must have thought about energy efficiency in this building, because they keep this room about 60 degrees. So if I'm rubbing my hands together, it's because I'm freezing. Anyways, like Bruce said, thanks for having me. This is a deep dive into our street lighting department. So kind of everybody knows, street lights look and feel all kind of different ways. So I'll just dive right into it. You can stop me. I don't think this is going to take too terribly long. So if you think about streetlights, you might think of one variety or another, but we kind of make sure that they're context sensitive for really where they're located. So on local streets, the poles are usually lower, 12 to 16 feet. Usually we like to put decorative looking features so they're not so plain Jane. On collector streets where traffic's a little bit more, the poles get to be 20 to 25 feet high. Some of the fixtures are decorative, but some of them may not be. That's kind of a crapshoot on what those look like. In the arterial streets, those usually have 30 to 40 to 45 foot tall poles, and the fixtures pretty utilitarian. They're really kind of built so you don't really notice them. So like in our office when we design projects, what do we consider when we think about streetlights? It's usually one of the last things we think about and put together. But what type of street are we looking at? Is it like a local street? Is it a reconstruction? Is it brand new? Is it a big arterial street? What poles and fixtures are we going to choose? How much is it? What's the most expensive fixture? What's the cheapest? Replacement of the fixture, and then any future maybe maintenance needs. Is anything take a little bit more work, take a little bit less work, et cetera. So we've talked a lot about bulbs, LED, high pressure sodium, this, that, incandescent. So really, here's just two quick definitions. So the left it's high pressure sodium. It's very similar to an incandescent. So these are the energy sinks. These are the ones we want to get rid of, the one on the left. And all of you, I'm sure, have seen an LED type of retrofit bulb. We call them corn cobs. They screw right out and they screw right into the same sockets as the high pressure sodiums. They're all different variety. It's amazing how different LED fixtures can look. So this is these are bulbs you just screw out and screw back in. This is LED boards where it's the whole fixture. Like you're not taking out the LED components. It's just one big flat board. And Commissioner Strand, talking about dark skies, these are the fixtures that shoot down. So there's nothing going up. So I'll just go through a bunch of pictures here so we're all familiar. So these are on our local streets, the decorative variety. On the left, that's a utility post top. So this does have it has a cover on it. So most of the light just shoots sideways, but there's really no controlling of it. It just kind of shoots out. So that's probably our most popular fixture we install. The next one is on 8th Street, just south of Main. And the next one is Broadway. You can see those lights don't really have the cap on top. So those are the ones that emanate going up. So in really the next slide here is more. So I call these the Mexican hat ones on the left, but they, in addition to the utility post top, these are our most common. They're probably 40 to 50 years old. They're very basic in nature, and they're the cheapest ones to maintain. You just pop the top off, you screw out the bulb, put the bulb back in, and you're off. They're very efficient. And then the utility post top on the right. More of these. I got lots of pictures here. So the one in the middle is 8th Street, historic 8th Street. Those poles and fixtures, they're over 100 years old, I'm sure. They're historic, and we maintain those the best we can as we have our reconstruction projects. The bases get a little bit rusty, so we're working with the welding company to keep the bases in shape. But you can see the ones on the right, they're in Osgood by Bruce's house. Those originally were a huge energy sink. We swapped out, I think, all of those, but those were the most energy consuming bulbs we had in the city. So on collector streets, this is the wide variety. You know, some of these collector streets are up by NDSU. Some of them are old. You can see how beautiful or non-beautiful they may be. On the left, those are what we call the Cobra head style. On a tall pole, they just up over the road and shoot down. The next one is out in urban plains. You know, we try to get the pole and arm kind of fancy on it, but the actual fixture is pretty plain. You kind of just see how those look. And on the arterial streets, these are the high pressure sodium ones on the arterial streets. These are pretty the most basic plain Jane fixtures you'll see. The poles are they blend into the really sky when you're driving by. In the I think we call these the shoebox variety. So sometimes we got one head, sometimes we got two if it's a multi-lane road. Some are pretty old. The one on the left there, that's right in downtown here on First Avenue North. Like I said, those can be 50 years old. All you got to do is change out the bulbs. So back in 2012, we started on our new developments. We started doing LEDs from scratch. So these are the fancy decorative local street LED lights. There is no glass in these things. If you look, a bird could fly right through. So what's happening is they all have LED boards and they're shining straight down. They're pretty nice. They're pretty cool looking, but they are expensive. We don't install these from scratch anymore.
How much does a streetlight cost?
Well, there's a lot to it. There's the underground work, there's the base, there's the pole, the fixture. The fixture itself, like this one, is $2,000.
How much?
$2,000.
$2,000.
Plus or minus. The utility post top that I referenced, that the most common, that's around $600. And on this one, like I said, you know, future maintenance requirements. On the utility post top with just the bulb, you just unscrew the bulb, put a new one in, that's $50 or so. In this one, you're really replacing the whole board, and that's could be $500 to $1,000. So that's why these look nice, but they are really expensive.
And how's the lifespan of them, Jeremy?
They give a 10-year warranty on the LED boards. I'm sure some will last more, some fail, and they do replace them, but there's still labor and travel costs for us to swap them out. So that's the decorative stuff that we've done basically down south of 94. These are a different variety that we've tried in North Fargo. You know, we had a whole bunch of dark areas of town. These are 20-foot poles, and these are the dark sky friendly. And these fixtures are about $300 to $400. So they're a lot cheaper, and the light's a lot better for the sky. You'll see it in the downtown area quite a bit on the left. Now, the left one can be LED, and it also can be high pressure sodium. So on this one on the left, it's still got just that board shining down. You'll see it on 4th Street as you leave downtown. And the other two are near Urban Plains by the hockey arena there. So they, you know, we try to make them look fancy per the area that they're in. And you see on this page, the fixtures on the right, you know, they're kind of sleek and elegant. In the next one, see the LED fixtures, they're a little bit clunky, a little bit utilitarian. And then on our newer streets, we try to make them blend in. They're 40 foot. Really just put a pretty basic pole and fixture out there, make it light up the roadway, and we can be done with it. So what I work with Bruce and Hannah and Maddie and the rest of the folks, this is all of our streetlights in town. This is a GIS map. I don't have a link of our live GIS, but these are all of our lights in town. Over 15,000 of them. So you can see we're in all parts of the city. And the next page, this is all the LED lights in town. You're like, holy cow, there's a lot of LED lights. There's 8,300. So then we could see what lights are not LED. So we divided those into 4 categories: 100 watt, 150 watt, 250 watt, and 400 watt. So per layer, you can see these are the 100 watts. So these are the old 40 to 50-year-old fixtures, and we figured out where they are in town. There is some stuff west of I-29 pre-2012, but most of the stuff's pretty old. So there's a 100 watt. Here's the 150 watt. Here's the 250 watt and 400 watt. So you can see we are all over the city with our project that we've applied for funding for. So you can see, you know, this is just an example of the city. We've got a couple sections here, Prairiewood area, West Acres area. So these are the lights that we're going to replace, everything in that color yellow. And then just to compare, same area, the green dots are the ones we've already done, in addition to the yellow ones that we have to replace. So we've done quite a bit. I think we've probably replaced 40% of the lights we need to replace, just on an annual basis that burn out over time. In another area, this is just south of downtown, you can see what we need to replace and what we've done. It's like, we've done quite a bit. We've been out there. And just to highlight the electricity differences, going from high pressure sodium to a LED, you really save about 60 to 65%. So you go from 100 watt to 35 watt, 150 watt to 50 watt, 250 to 105, and 400 to 160. So in addition to what Maddie and Hannah were talking about, to replace the nearly 4,000 lights, we do have a project right now that we're kicking off next week to replace 1,000 of those utilitarian arterial and collector street fixtures. And we got it through MetroCog and through the state transportation department under the carbon reduction program. So this is the areas that project will be. These are either the arterial roads or the collector streets. So this is just north I-94, here's south I-94. So when you talk about replacing all these street lights, there's a lot of them out there, and there's a big footprint of where they're at. But I think this is pretty neat to show. And with that, I can answer any questions you may have.
Jeremy, I'll start. With the expansion of the city, the footprint of the city's growth down to the new diversion boundary, what type of a future are we looking at in investment and costs, and how are we going to light all that area, and what type of time? I'm just curious how you see that growth in the coming and how you anticipate it and plan for it.
Well, that is a good question because it's not really something that we plan for. It's easy to plan for the streets, and the lights go in with the streets. But we don't look at the future electricity needs. That's a good comment. It really just comes with the road projects.
Who else?
I have a question. How did you choose what areas to change? So the lights that you already changed to LED, how did you choose those areas?
Like this one. So what happens is it's really just the bulbs burning out. So trust me, if a light bulb is not operating at night, we find out about it very soon. So it's really those high pressure sodiums, they probably have a life of 3 years. So they burn out just like an incandescent do. So our maintenance staff go out there and swap them out. And they can buy the bulbs for right around $50 to $60. We get them in bulk, a couple thousand, and we just keep taking out of the maintenance stock and replacing them.
Go ahead, Bruce.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jeremy, you said that the LEDs come with a warranty of 10 years, so it's at least triple the life over high pressure sodium.
Oh, certainly, yes.
Thank you.
I'm curious, thinking about the people in the community and all that, maybe Commissioner, when Mike Williams was commissioner, and maybe when you were running Public Works, if I recall, the city initiated and instituted something like an $8 per month charge for businesses and homes for streetlights. And I'm wondering if we can down the road ever, when we get to the point where we've gotten all this done, if we can ever give them any relief, if this reduces our cost, or is the cost forever going to be with the growth of the city? Are we just never going to see it end? I'm just curious about that the $8, where it goes and who pays for it. And I don't know about how this fits into the budget project topic, but.
Well, I remember that discussion, and it was controversial, but, it was another way to supplement the budget. I voted against it, but actually, I thought it was too much at one time. But I do think that if we're going to start a savings account for the city for environmental sustainability and saving money for conservation, it'd be great to cut the residents in on it too, to a degree.
That's what I think we might put that on our topics list in the parking lot. If ever there's an opportunity for tax relief that can come down the road with these, because of this grant, it's just a game changer. But you still have all this future.
Yeah, and the utility, it's called Streetlight Traffic Control Device Utility. So it's got the signing, marking, signals, and streetlights. So this is one component of the utility. There should be a reduction, just very briefly, but it does occur. After our project, it would occur.
Bruce, you were going to ask a question, or did you?
Yeah, I was thinking about the birth of the street and traffic light utility, and I didn't remember 8, but maybe we did open up that high.
It was $1.50 to start with. It wasn't 8 to begin with.
I think it's 8 now.
I don't doubt that, but it's an easy, the fees are harder to track.
But even at $1.50, there was a lot of debate over that. Yeah.
Well, that was a shift to have the people contribute to the costs, and then it helps us identify the real costs. It's who knows what a streetlight costs, or and all that. But another question somebody asked after the news media did a report on this, they said, well, and I don't know, somebody said, well, when you're driving down the highway, you see LED lights, they're almost too bright. Is that an issue with LEDs in our communities, in our neighborhoods? Are they? I don't know. I mean, somebody just, will this be too hard to look at? Or?
Yeah, that is the one interesting thing about streetlights is, well, just on the first slide. So you don't think about the color of the streetlight. That's the question that you're talking about. So with the high pressure sodium is kind of that orange one in the front. It all comes down to your personal preference. You go into the older areas that have those high pressure sodium. I actually hate the orange type light. And in my development, we've got some of the retrofit LEDs. So that color is based in Kelvin for whatever reason. So the lower number in Kelvin, the easier it is in theory on the eyes. So that's like 2,700 Kelvin. The whiter stuff gets 3, 4, 5, 6,000 Kelvin. I think the new stuff we do is 4,000. So it's definitely a whiter light. And there are definitely preferences on who likes what, and we hear about that occasionally. But it doesn't have anything to do with energy.
Go ahead, Mike.
Mr. Chairman, yeah, so at church, 3 of us changed out all of our lights there to LED. And we found out that the color really matters as far as into the basement, we wanted brighter because that was active. We have childcare there. And then upstairs in the sanctuary and in the meeting rooms, we went with 2,700 for warmth. And it affects people's mood. And, so I agree with you that it's something that you want to be cognizant of is the various kind of like context for the design, context for the light, for how bright and how white or how warm.
Chad?
Well, I was gonna say, that is the beauty of LEDs, though. You can get them on whatever color temperature you want and whatever lumen output you want. So like I said, it really comes down to that personal taste and the application on what you're using them for.
Yeah, so some useless trivia here. Each one of these lights, on a monthly basis, they're gonna cost about $25 to $40 a month. Yep, and that's about the same as running a traffic signal at one intersection for a month. So it's kind of interesting. One light versus an entire signal operating at an intersection. Red, yellow, green all month. It's $1 a day.
But bear with me, Jeremy. We aren't going toward darker neighborhoods, are we? Some communities you go to, they hardly have streetlights, at all. And we're still, in our philosophy, is it still the same to light and illuminate? And, has there anything shifted on that? Or how would we define our philosophy now?
Well, we, probably 10 years ago almost, we had some dark sections of town, like square blocks that didn't have any streetlights. They might have had a utility pole light on the corner. That was north of downtown. There was a number of neighborhoods in North Fargo. There was some in South Fargo that didn't have any lights. So the city commission made it a priority to install new lights in all those areas.
And there's a safety component in that conversation.
Exactly. It was recommended from the police department.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Chairman?
Absolutely.
No, but that was exactly right because the crime correlated with the lights. They did studies, so not only, for safety, but there were whole neighborhoods by Roosevelt that didn't have streetlights except on corners. But it's important to have some lighting in those neighborhoods, in all the neighborhoods, I think.
Anybody else? Jeremy, you and your department and your people and your team and Brenda and everybody, just remarkable work. This is a result that will be quantifiable and so substantial through time. Just good work.
Well, thanks. This is actually fun stuff. I'd love to do this all day long.
Anything else? Bruce, anybody else for this while we have Jeremy at the podium?
No, but thank you. I just, again, kind of trying to put this together, calling the internal team together, everybody that had to play a role, and expecting a bunch of those looks, and I didn't get one. So it's great. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
Congratulations. It's good work for the city. All right. I don't know if anybody in the audience is here for public comment or not. If there is, we'd welcome anybody to the podium. Otherwise, I don't see anyone. Okay. Our next meeting will be on June 11th. And we're going to keep on this 2-month schedule. We will have some good reports coming our way with activities that reflect your several years' work getting there. So the patience will pay off. Okay, on that, we stand adjourned. Thanks, everyone.